And I want to go a little, even a step further and kind of piggyback off that. I know me and you have talked about my enamoring with Kalijah Cansey, but who are some guys that you're looking at maybe defensively, if we were to go defensive line? Who are some of your top guys, and how big is that gap for you when it comes to the top guys compared to maybe a guy you would take in the 30s or second round?
You want Philly Philly? Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, man, Nolan Smith has to be at the top of the list from Georgia. Because, like, I went into the combine, and to me, he was like a top 20 player already. Like, like I felt like he was already a really good run defender, extremely athletic, really physical. And he really just fit the style. I felt like the Eagles like with defensive players, and after what he did at the combine, I think that really solidified that. But they like these athletes that can really bend and can really threaten the edge, but also hold their ground on the run game. And I think that really makes him kind of at the top of my board, at least, is of someone that I could see being an Eagle at 10. It really kind of depends on how the board falls. We know the discussion around Jalen Carter and how everything is really gone really since the combine and not a stellar pro day. But to me, I feel like a realistic expectation edge-wise would probably be him. But also, Brandon Graham is back on a 1-year deal. Do they want that type of edge, more of a stoutly built edge that is a little bit more physical? I could see a guy like Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech being kind of that role. Keon White from Georgia Tech is another player that I could see kind of fit that 4-eye role, where you really want him to just go one-on-one with tackles and kind of use his length and strength. And then Zach Harrison from Ohio State. I think those are kind of the bucket of guys that I look at. Harrison and White probably more so second round, I would say, more so than first round. But certainly Tyree Wilson and Nolan Smith at 10, I think would be highly considered, assuming Tyree Wilson makes it down to 10. There were some rumblings that he might go in the top 5, so he might not even be an option. But when you look at the defensive line, I know you brought up Kalijah Cansey, but Adetomiwa Adebawore from Northwestern is someone that really, really intrigues me, and really kind of that versatile type of player that we talked about, like the Eagles want offensive line wise. I think he can be kind of that defensive line wise, because some people like him as a 4-3 DN, some like him as a 3 tech, and it really kind of depends. But the strength he plays with is phenomenal. Tested off the charts at the combine, followed up at the pro day, went through and did everything at the pro day. A little bit on the smaller side. He's about where Kalijah Cansey is. He's like 6'2", 6'3", 280, 285, but he has more length than Cansey, and kind of has that desired arm length. And I just think he's a little bit more refined just with his handwork and how he sheds blocks. So I think he would be a guy that I would look at 30 as a possibility in interior. And then if you want to continue to kind of beef up your defensive line and you don't want to go with him, I would go with Keanu Benton from Wisconsin at 62. I think he can play off of Jordan Davis pretty well. He's a guy that is built like a nose tackle, but moves like a 3 tech and can really split gaps, has pass rush upside. So those are kind of the bucket of players that I've really kind of like separated kind of from kind of the rest in terms of what they're able to do, kind of their play styles. And then they have versatility to their games. Going back to edge, like Nolan Smith, to me, like, he's probably a stand-up outside linebacker, but you could probably put him at 4-3 defensive end and he still would be fine. He works with his hand in the dirt pretty well, can be a stand-up guy. And you don't have to ask him to play like a high majority of the snaps either. He can be a rotational guy. Maybe you throw out a kind of a exotic package where You got Sam Reddick, Nolan Smith, Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, and you throw five across there, and then you're just crossing them all. So like I like the possibility of kind of the flexibility and versatility of these guys, and to me, I think that's really what you're starting to look for in NFL. You don't want a guy that you just can only put him hand in the dirt, or you can only line him up outside, like a wide nine outside of a tackle. And I think a lot of those names that I mentioned, you can move them around a little bit. Zach Harrison played a little bit of three tech at Ohio State and was able to still get some pressure. Trying to think, Keon White play a lot of 4-eye and 3 tech as well. So like you see these guys that you can move around and really do a lot of things with. And at the end of the day, like the Eagles' best thing that they did last year was have 6-7 strong, like and they were to rotate them out, throw different looks at teams. Because obviously, like, Reddick is going to do what he does, but they're running stunts with Javon Hargrave and Josh Sweat, stunts with Sweat in Hargrave, and they're doing a lot of different things. Reddick and Hargrave, Cox and Hargrave. Like you did so many things defensively that you bring in Sean Desai, who is someone that is going to really take advantage of the talent he has in his room. So why not continue to add to the talent and bring in multiple defensive line? You don't have to be gung-ho on just drafting one dude. You can draft multiple, especially with how deep this edge and defensive line class is. You can get multiple guys that can come in and really do some nice things. So to me, I think they got options, and really it's all about finding the guy you want and then addressing obviously things down the line. But they certainly have some options.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I have to get off of the excuse me, what's his name? I'm trying to forget his name, so I'm gonna forget the Kalijah Cansey. But I have to get off the Kalijah Cansey train at some point. So I took my good 2 weeks of just saying I think he's great, and now I got to go a little bit deeper and everything. So that's why I ask. I want to make sure there's a lot of versatility in this draft. If you're looking at offensive line, you're looking at defensive line, you're looking at even cornerbacks and safeties. There's a lot of guys that can do a lot of different things, and I think the Eagles can definitely take advantage of that. Now, something I want to talk about is kind of this is 100% opinion, because we look at where the Eagles are with the guys they've been able to bring back, with the guys they lose. A guy that we continuously hear about is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I want to know, if you're Howie, if you're this team, how far are you willing to go with this Chauncey Gardner situation? Are you willing to just ride it out until he finally makes a decision? Or is there a point or a number where you're just like, all right, we got to get out of this?
It's a tough discussion because, like, we've seen the safety deals this year, and we know, and it's like, it's crazy to me because it's like we kind of talked about this too. Like, the safety position is so important in the NFL, but the market still has not risen to the importance of it, right? So whatever number he has, or whatever number he thought, going into the discussions, once the deal started coming out and Jesse Bates is getting a reasonable deal, he was the one that could have reset the market, right? Because he's like a rare single high safety that can truly play from hash to hash, and you can count on to get to the ball. Once his deal came out, it was like, okay, like, probably not going to be what you thought it was, Chauncey. So it's like, to me, I would personally write it out and see if you can just do a short-term deal at this point. Because, like, to me, whatever long-term deals discussions they may have had, multi-year deals, it just didn't match up. Like, their numbers didn't match up. It just seems like, and this is all just opinion. Like, I don't actually have any knowledge of the situation, but like, kind of just like reading what's going on, kind of the ongoing discussions and how long it's taken. Like, we were expecting to get Chauncey news probably earlier in the week, or if he was going to leave, we expect him early in the week. So to me, like, the fact that it's dragging on probably means he might come back on a shorter term deal. and maybe they have to revisit this when he actually takes the bulk of the snaps at safety, and like he's not playing too much of a versatile role defensively. And I think that's kind of the sticking point, is like, has he played the full year and played the full time at the role that he wants to get paid at? And like for Bates, yes, like it was a no-brainer, right? But like, since Chauncey is like he's like so good of a player and he does so many things well, it's like a jack of all trades but a master of none. It just it's really unfortunate because like the NFL is such a stickler to like the position you play. What is the value of that position? How is it structured? How have other deals gone of a player of similar ability and stats and whatnot? And no one can deny his impact. He has ball production. He brings an edge to the defense. He has the ability to play nickel, play some safety, play some post, play in the box, come down and fit into to run fits. Like, he's checking all the boxes, but it's like, okay, next year, what is your sole position? So to me, like the Eagles, ideally, you don't want Reed Blankenship as kind of your top guy coming back. I mean, they lost Marcus Epps as well, so you got to think about like next year. You don't want to roll out a potential rookie or first year guy alongside with Reed Blankenship. It just nothing on Reed Blankenship's ability and what he's been able to do, but you got to have someone that can solidify it. So to me, it feels like it's probably going to be a shorter term deal, and if it's a longer term deal, it's certainly not going to be what he was coming into free agency expecting or hoping for. It's probably going to be a team friendly deal as well. So to me, that's why I think it's probably going to be a shorter one to get paid at least for the production he's put up and what he can do in the next year. So, but for the Eagles aspect of it, you got to look at it and be like, do we know for sure he can be the cornerstone safety that they can build around? And I don't know if they have the exact answer to it. And I think that's why the negotiations have been, just kind of a back and forth thing. And how do other teams in the NFL value him as well? Like, do they see him as a true safety too? So I think it kind of speaks to him not hearing anything or not coming to agreement that there is a tough discussions happening around, all right, what is his true value? What is he position wise? Because like he plays so many different things, he plays so many different roles, and he's good at it. But
Yeah.
there's no one particular role that he plays with. And like even Minka Fitzpatrick at some degree had some challenges before he became a full-time safety. Like he was playing corner, he was playing nickel before he finally moved to safety. So like it's a tough, it's really tough because like you see how important it is to the defense. And when he was gone, like his presence was, or lack of presence was felt. So he's clearly a very important player, but like how far do you go now, to re-sign him, and what does those numbers look like, knowing that you have some other big contracts coming up down the line? So to me, that's why I think it's probably a shorter term deal, and you might be doing this again in a year or two, if he's not truly like either a strong or free safety, or however you want to describe what exact position he plays at safety. So I think while we talk about versatility is good, the safety position, you gotta have something there, in place to get paid for what the market it calls for, and how to reset the market. And unfortunately for him, it's one of those situations where it's really tough to gauge what exactly is his position if he goes from team to team, because it can vary from team to team.
Yeah, it's funny. My girl was telling me, she was like, I don't get, if Chauncey Gardner-Johnson can do all this stuff so well, Why isn't he valuable? I was like, just don't even try to understand it. The NFL, you'll never get it. I have no idea. It is what it is. Like it does stink because I do love Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's attitude. I love what he brought to the team. Obviously, his play spoke for itself, but I think he's someone that fits Philly. So we'll, keep our fingers crossed and hope everything works out itself out in that situation. You did say another big contract coming up, and this is gonna be the last question I got for you, and then I'll let you get out of here. But you talked about another big contract. I think one that's looming over a lot of people's head is the Jalen Hurts contract right now. Kind of a two-part question. Are you worried at all that it's taking this long, quote unquote long? Or and two, what do you think that's going to look like? Is there anybody in the league right now that you can kind of point at and say it might be structured along those lines?
Yeah, so this is another tough one because honestly, I'll answer the second question first. There's not a structure out there right now, or contract structure that can probably encapsulate what Jalen Hurts brings to the Eagles. Because maybe you think, and by now we would have thought, a Lamar Jackson would have already been signed and get that deal. But I think it's going to get dicey now because like he's not going to be the only one that is coming up on contracts. Herbert is coming up on one. Burrow is obviously still looming too. Um, and he's a different style of quarterback, even for Lamar Jackson. So it's like it's a tough one for me because like I could see like a like 4 year, like maybe 160 million or something like that. Where there's also some added incentives of the number of touchdowns he gets or number of games he plays and all that. But like, what does the exact numbers look like? Like how is it structured? Is it front loaded or back loaded? Like to me, it's like it's a fascinating conversation because I mean, no one can deny he's had his best season to date this past year. And everything is really clicking for him. And it seems like he's on that trajectory. He's only going to get better year after year. So for the Eagles, like, are they betting on him being at his best in 4 or 5 years? Or are they betting on him to get it to that sooner at 2 or 3 years? And is it going to leave room for renegotiating if he outplays that contract? So like quarterback contracts are so difficult because like not only do you have to project what they'll be by the end of their contract, you have to project and leave room for if they exceed that expectation. Like no one can deny, like Patrick Mahomes has already outplayed his extension already, and he's only a couple years into it. And for Hurts, it's like he's a second round pick. He didn't get the 5th-year option to start off with, that a lot of first round quarterbacks get. So he's already making significantly less than a Burrow or a Herbert, even a Mahomes did, Josh Allen. So to me, I think the structure of it is going to be all about, okay, we know you're valuable to us and we know that we want you around long term, but we got some other mouths to feed too. Like AJ Brown's probably going to want a bigger contract soon. Devontae Smith, he's going to want a nice payday when that time comes. It's going to be difficult because like at the end of the day, he's going to get taken care of.
Yeah.
But he's such like even when you just take it for face value, he's such a uniquely gifted quarterback that even you can't even look at like past black quarterbacks or mobile quarterbacks or dual threat quarterbacks, and he does it even differently than like a Cam Newton did or a Randall Cunningham or Warren Moon. Like it's such a different way of quarterbacking. So like I think that's what makes the deal difficult because like when we don't have a Lamar Jackson structure, but even then he doesn't play the same as Lamar.
Yeah.
They even have their own nuanced ways of playing football. And then too, like, quarterback's a big investment. Um, and they know how much they value offensive line and receiver. Like, how do they pay him adequately yet making some room for those other big contracts? So I think that's going to be kind of the big thing for me is like, how are they going to manipulate it to where they can pay everyone and still keep that core group together, but still you have to expect maybe one or two of those guys ends up leaving.
Yeah.
So that's a tough thing about quarterback contracts is like they're gonna negotiate the hell out of it. Like it's gonna be a such a nuanced contract that other teams may look to it and be like, okay, I can get with that. And to me, I think it's still there's gonna be some team friendliness to it, just because based on how the Eagles operate. Um, and to me, I think Jalen Hurts is that type of guy. Like he wants to keep, like he's gonna make sure AJ Brown gets taken care of. You know, he wants to keep him long term for sure. It certainly seems that way. Same thing with Devontae Smith. But the question is like, how long can you make that happen? And then like if I think the biggest hurdle for me is like there is a possibility he outplays the contract in 2 or 3 years. And then all of a sudden you're back at the negotiating table saying, look, I want 200 million, like I want 250 million. Like it's certainly a possibility. So I think for the Eagles and Hurts, I think it's all about you find a number somewhere in the middle, like where it's not backbreaking and it's not like a tough one to swallow, but at the same time, like it leaves you room to where you can add on like 2 or 3 more years and like continue to like structure it. So to me, I think I would assume like they're gonna spread out the money decently over a 3 or 4 year stretch. I expect it to probably be like a 4 to 5 year extension where they have some ability to raise it up in a couple years or dial it back a little bit. But the actual intricacies of it, I think you could talk about hours about just like like looking through other like contracts or players of his skill set. Because I mean, you even look at the Dak Prescott, contract, for example. Like he probably demands more than that,
Yeah.
right? Just like health wise, the availability, plus what he's already done, as a 30-year player getting his team to the Super Bowl. So I think maybe that's your starting point. Like, okay, I'm definitely getting more than Dak, but like, where do you go from there? I think that's kind of where it lies for me.
Yeah, it's the curse of being good is you got to pay all these guys. Where it is what it is. It's tough, like you said, it's tough sometimes, but that is the business we live in, we work in, or we cover, I guess we should say. And it's going to be interesting. I think once that drops, I don't think it's going to drop anytime soon. I think this is going to be probably like a summer long thing. I think we're going to be talking about this maybe, I think it gets done before the year starts, but I think this is going to be something we're going to be possibly dragging into OTA. So it's going to be interesting to see how everything works itself out. But I do agree with you. I think that Hurts is one of those guys that will say, what can we do to make sure everything kind of stays afloat? Because even if you look at all the guys that we've brought back, a lot of that isn't possible if you think, Jalen Hurts is going to absolutely break the bank next year. So, all right, well, the year after that, we should say. So it's going to be really fun to see. We're going to learn a lot about, Nicole Lynn. We're going to learn a lot about Jalen Hurts. It's going to be a very, very fun offseason or a very, very painful offseason. I guess we'll see what happens. But, Devin, I appreciate you taking the time, man. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, brother. Let them know where they can find your work, where they can follow you.
Yeah, so on Twitter, my ad is at real_D_Jackson. All of my work can be found on the Philadelphia Inquirer. Gonna have some positional rankings, or not rankings, but positional previews of kind of every position in the draft coming up, starting with quarterback, of course. and that'll drop later in the week. But I'm excited to kind of go through it and talk about some possible late round options at quarterback. Talk about like some of the defensive line and linebacker class and all that. So it should be a fun discussion, and really something fun to put together. And like take an Eagles lens because, like, to me, free agency really ushered in, obviously full time draft talk, but also like where are the positions to really target. So I'm really excited to drop those along with my guy EJ Smith. Me and him are splitting up the ranking, or I won't say the rankings, the kind of the tiering. We like to do it in tiers. So really excited to drop those and get the ball rolling on that.
Yes, sir. And I'll be definitely looking out for it. And I hope everybody else keeps an eye out for it. Definitely go follow him on Twitter. An absolute great follow. Very, very intuitive, knows his stuff. But yeah, like I said, I appreciate your time, man. And I appreciate everybody that has tuned in. Be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, and join the family. But other than that, y'all know what it is, man. It is Fly Eagles Fly. And we are out here. Peace.
Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
Fly Eagles flying on the team. Touchdown. Time to get Jalen this ring. You don't really want to start a thing. This a Bird Gang Nation, baby. It's a Philly thing. Hater, and you looking like you type trash. I'm just here calling on Philly the podcast. And we can call a man dog or watch Miles score off the handoff. Rest of the division, your man saw Jackson like Sean, hunting like Randall. Season hit, early time to do him in. Your boy Philly Fresco. Thanks for tuning in.